Hey, this is Tommy John, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
You can put it on the board. Yes!
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Angus and Wagyu steaks and chops. When do you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all, those massive and gigantic tomahawk cut and cowboy cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner, 714-948-0100, 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. Yes! All right, and a big welcome in to everybody listening in on all of our affiliates, radio, television. Big welcome in to everybody on Highway Radio, Highway Country Radio, 101.5 FM and 107.3 FM. Thanks for joining us on that drive from LA to Vegas or Vegas to LA, whichever direction you're going down Interstate 15. Plus, everybody in Atlanta, thanks for joining us first thing in the morning over there on WDJY 99.1 FM. Plus, our friends over in Auburn, Alabama, WAUD 1230 AM dial. And that is home of the Atlanta Braves, plus everybody else throughout the country on all of our independents and network affiliates, plus everybody on Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, WOW, and independent cable affiliates, plus Hotel TV where applicable. All right. Today's show, we are going to go over power rankings, but these aren't the power rankings that you're used to. These are power rankings that you certainly may have an opinion on, but these are a little bit more, let's just say, dubious. Okay, so how about this one? How about the power rankings of the worst commissioners in sports? Yes, sir. And yes, ma'am, we're going to have a little bit of fun with this from Bleacher Report, our friends over there. And I have to tell you, folks, these are actually pretty good. I like these. And not too many people have the parts to talk about these kinds of things. But we do over here. And look, we're not trying to irritate anybody. We're just stating the facts and we're stating opinions. And this is our opinion. And the facts are always cited, of course. We make sure that we cite the facts. But we like to give our opinion because other people have opinions, but they just don't talk about them because they're so worried about being politically correct and all that other rigmarole. Well, look, every league has power rankings, whatever the case. And every so often, we hear about, the league's best decision makers, and how about the worst decision makers too? And look, each day, these guys deal with issues and egos and dollars and I don't know, most of us can't really even fathom what they deal with. But then again, a lot of it, as we see, as it's simplified to us, it seems more as common sense. I mean, for the most part, they each do a pretty good job. But of course, some slip-ups and, well, some are worse than others, of course. And so ranking from bottom, better yet, let's go from top. What do you think? Let's flip a coin here, folks. Let's flip a coin. All right, so here we go. We're going to flip a coin right now, all right? And we're actually going to flip a guitar pick, believe it or not. So the Fender's Medium, this is a multicolor, everybody on TV can see this. A Fender's Medium is the heads, and the side with no verbiage on it whatsoever is the tail. So here it goes. Here's the flip, and it's a heads. So the heads, we're going to start from the top to the bottom, meaning the least impressive, or better yet, the least intrusive, all the way to the one that really didn't matter too much. So let's start with good old, and we're going to preface this, Gary Bettman. Gary Bettman ranks number one on this list, and there's a lot of reasons for it. Look, this guy, every time he walks into a building in a National Hockey League, when he walks into one of the buildings that the teams play in, he gets an astounding round of boos, just like I just gave here. But this guy, wasn't he a lock to be let go when the league shut down operations for an entire season in the 04-05 season? And by the way, folks, here's something interesting. This is the only year that I ever recall that I even heard of is where the Stanley Cup stayed with the Tampa Bay Lightning. They won it only once, but they had the cup for 2 years. How do you like that? I mean, look, missing an entire season of play is unprecedented for any league. It doesn't matter. Like major NFL work stoppages and Major League Baseball strikes, which are atrocious, NBA lockouts and whatnot. Look, although the NHL has rebounded to some degree, it's a telling sign that most of the televised games for a so-called major sport are broadcast on a network that is not necessarily one of the big networks unless it comes to what? The playoff games. Of course, the playoff games, our hockey guy, our hockey analyst for the Sports Circus is Dave Jackson, the rules analyst for ESPN Hockey. And Dave is a wonderful guy. In fact, we're going to be doing another show with Dave coming up soon. But when we think about these leagues and where they broadcast and the TV contracts and all the nonsense, you say, what commissioner has had the absolute worst effect? And we're talking the long-term effect as well in the short run and the long run, right? So there's a real problem. And Gary Bettman still gets those incredible boos because nobody forgot what happened. Nobody. And the relevance of the NHL has actually, it's been stagnated since Bettman's watch. From deals with Fox to ESPN, ABC to NBC, the network's playing hot potato with the NHL seems to be what's going on. However, the NHL has, in many cases, in many places, and many opinions, let's just say, passed the NBA in popularity. And me personally, I'm an NHL fan, so I love hockey. And I love the fact that the National Hockey League is more popular right now, seemingly in my circles and a lot of other circles, than the NBA. But Gary Bettman has that dubious distinction of the worst of the worst. Now, of course, there's another guy, as far as the PGA Tour goes, that comes in right behind him. It's a guy by the name of Tim Finchem. Now, if you don't know him, he's with the PGA Tour. So, of course, forget the fact that the FedEx Cup feels terribly manufactured, bizarrely structured, and unbelievably anticlimactic. The PGA Tour, not professional golf, is on the brink of irrelevance. I mean, look at the three most important yearly events. The Masters, of course, a private invitational. The USGA runs the US Open, and the R&A runs the British Open. So the PGA Championship is exciting, but only because it's considered a major and the last major. In fact, the conclusion to the recent edition with Dustin Johnson grounding his club in the bunker as a deep parking lot asphalt, so to say, proved that the PGA doesn't have the pulse of the public, regardless of the rules. In short, the non-majors are the true fans' tournaments only. It seems as though. And of course, because that limits the appeal to just 16 days a year, and not nearly as many people tune in or even care in the first place. But more so than any other reason, it all comes back to Eldrick Woods. Now, you can call him Tiger Woods, but we call him Eldrick because we know that's his real first name. Phil Mickelson is a great player and just as much fun to watch as Eldrick. But for the most part, an event without Eldrick has sort of a soft one-player feel to it. It's kind of missing the protagonist-antagonist kind of thing. I don't know. I think that's what's missing. So regardless if he wins or loses or misses the cut or whatever, it seems like a lot of people want to see Eldrick Woods, but you can call him Tiger, play golf. And so, of course, we think about the old hypnosis idea. And, of course, that might be Finchman's only hope to convince Eldrick to play in more non-major tournaments. Still, anything is worse than a try. So that guy comes in a dubious second. As we rumble down the list, how about good old John Swofford of the Atlantic Coast Conference? I'm a Duke guy, so this one sticks real close to home. Now, regarding football and basketball, sorry, but those are the big money makers, and we know that. But most recognizable sports, the ACC, technically, it is a conundrum. So with Duke and Carolina, along with Maryland and Wake, and the ACC really has an incredible collection of basketball clubs, right? We can't count Stanford and Cal in there or SMU because they really haven't reached those heights. And, of course, it's even weird to say that those universities are in the ACC in the first place, and they'll be there for years to stay anyway. But when the conference expanded last decade, that's right, last decade, adding Boston College, Vatech, and Miami, everything was in place for a super football conference and a rival to the SEC. And, in fact, in their own backyard on top of it. So it just never happened, though. So it's the old karma thing, right? And the expansion coincided with two top dogs, Florida State and Miami, falling from the top of that whole, remember that whole BCS, and it was the BS list. That's the BCS favorite list. In fact, another should follow with the demise of Vatech, apparently, on the horizon. Those guys are looking bad. So chalk it up to bad luck for Swofford, who's been in charge since 1997. His intentions were good, but the wheels are coming off in the ACC. Back here in a few moments on the Circus. Lots more to come, folks. Don't go anywhere. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door. store without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at uppercutchops.com or call 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Or make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com. Folks, check them out. All right, welcome in everybody on TV and radio. Of course, welcome in everybody on that drive between LA and Vegas on Highway Country Radio, 101.5 and 107.3 FM, plus everybody else around the country, Atlanta and Auburn and Chicago and New York and Seattle. We're all over the place, folks. You can't get away from us. Hey, how about a trivia question for everybody here? And how about this one? This would be an easy one. So, your chance to win a couple of nights right here in fabulous Las Vegas, or a couple of nights in Branson, Missouri, or a couple of nights in Orlando, Florida, if you can answer this question brought to you by Vacation Buddies. Which NBA player is the logo on the Nike jerseys that has the title of Jumpman? Would it be A, Kobe Bryant, B, Allen Iverson, C, Michael Jordan, or D, Steph Curry? If you know the answer, call 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777. Remember, you have a choice between four different athletes. Which one was, or better yet, which one is the Jumpman for the Nike brand with their jerseys? Whether it's baseball, basketball, whatnot, this logo is everywhere. Is it Michael Jordan? Is it Steph Curry? Is it Kobe Bryant? Or is it Allen Iverson? The order doesn't matter. Just name the player. That's it. 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777 for your chance to pick up a couple of nights in Las Vegas, Branson, Missouri, or Orlando, Florida. And this is brought to you by Vacation Buddies. And, of course, they are not affiliated with this radio station, but give a call, 888-576-5777, if you know the answer. Okay, moving on. Back to our list, our dubious list of the worst commissioners, brought to you by Bleacher Report. So we've already covered Gary Bettman, who is the worst. That comes in number one. Tim Fincham from the PGA Tour. Bettman, by the way, from the NHL. Fincham from the PGA Tour. And then, of course, it was John Swafford of the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference. How about this one? How about Bud Selig? Comes in fourth, or number 10 out of 13. And Bud Selig, look, after nearly 20 years of being in power, a long list of achievements. I mean, the guy did some good. Besides a long list of mistakes would follow any commissioner, of course. But despite the excitement infused by the wild card and interleague play, the controversial stakes added to the All-Star game, even when apprehension of many big-name steroid users, Selig can't get out of his own way. So the crackdown on steroids was a case of closing the barn door way after the horse got out, apparently, according to Bleacher Report. So they say Roger Clemens, Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, Rafi Palmeiro, Andy Pettit, none of these were caught in the prime of their careers. Not even Manny Ramirez, Manny being Manny. He wasn't either. Alex Rodriguez seemed the only exception. So the notion that we have to consider a steroid era, or worse yet, erect a steroid wing in the Hall of Fame is nauseating to say the least. And of course, that's only for the game's diehard traditionalists like me. I'm a traditional guy. I don't like the fact that if people were cheating, I don't want that in there. That goes back to the old Pete Rose thing. Anyway, if Selick had been on top of things 15 years previous, well, we could have probably avoided all that, but there's no question with all the human growth hormone problems not too terribly far away, well, that is he juicing or not? Those whispers will haunt the game for many, many, many years, decades, and we'll say eons to come. And of course, the whole Pete Rose thing, that's a whole nother issue. So Bud Selig comes in number 4. Number 5 is Dan Beebe, Big 12 Conference Commissioner. So it's sort of a head scratcher to lose 1/6 of your teams in a single month would hurt any conference. But the good old Big 12 suffered a terrible blow when Colorado and Nebraska jumped ship. Both programs were vital cogs. And yes, it might have become much worse if, as if it was speculated, Texas and Oklahoma left too. But just because he kept the Longhorns and Sooners didn't mean that the Big 12 fans should have praised him. But the conference, in today's time, it remains rather strong in basketball. Of course, with Texas and Oklahoma powerhouses, that would be not the University of Oklahoma. Because why? They are where? Texas and Oklahoma are in the Southeast Conference. And of course, they're always going to remain in the national title picture. But this guy has been the complete demise of the Big 12 Conference as I see it and as others see it as well. And let's face it, the Big 12 has really hit the skids despite the facts of retooling and basically poaching the Pac-12, which is now the Pac-2.5 or Pac-7.5 at this point. But this guy did not do the Big 12 any favors. I'll tell you that much right now. Just like number 6, good old John Marinetto from the Big East Conference. So, you ask about these conference leaders, these conference. Look, this is from a while back, folks, but it still sticks and it still stings. These commissioners were not very good in their time, and they certainly wouldn't be today. It doesn't really matter what year we're talking about. So this is one of those proverbial evergreens that you could play over and over, and the argument is going to stay the same no matter when you play it. That's right. So think about the idea of what the Big East used to be, right? Borderline comical. Big East receives automatic bids from the old BCS crap back in the day and whatnot. And the Big East, outside of a couple of hiccups here and there in basketball, they have really been remarkably ineffective. And we think about Marinetto and the predecessor, Trengase, and he retired back in 2000, way back in the time machine, 2009, and going back to associate commissioner back in 2002. These guys really did not do a whole lot of good in the Big East. And we all know that basketball is arguably tops, and of course, in the Big East, because they really don't have a whole hell of a lot else. Their football is a lot to be desired on that football field, on the gridiron. Boy, they are not very good. But the conference, of course, refused to roll over and die when they lost Boston College, Va-Tech, and Miami way back in 2004 and 2005. So back then, Louisville, South Florida, UConn, and Cincinnati, they come to join the party. Well, since then, last I checked, some of these institutions are not involved in this particular conference, namely Cincinnati, namely Louisville, namely South Florida. So you look at the quality of play, it's really not as high as some of the other conferences either. And at one time, it was the Big East that was on top of the basketball world. But in football, boy, just atrocious. And since major reconstruction way back in the time machine 20 years ago, you look at the teams that were there. West Virginia, gone. Pitt, gone. Louisville, gone. Rutgers, gone. All of those schools are gone as well. And they used to be pretty deep back in, we'll say 20 years ago. But now they are the perennial doormat in college football. So the Big East has a lot to be desired there. How about Larry Scott from the old Pac-10 way back in the day? Yeah, that's right. We're reaching back in the time machine because we can. So because of its great history, the Pac-10 would have always been one of the great classic conferences right up there with the Big Ten and the SEC. And at one point, it was the Pac-10 was known as the tournament, or better, the tournament champions. I'm thinking of the Rose Parade. No, I'm thinking it was known as the Conference of Champions. That was way back in the day. I think when they were the Pac-8 and the Pac-10 as well, right? And then there's expansions and additions when they had brought in Utah, they brought in Colorado. Yeah, how'd that work out? Because they're actually gone as well. So look, although football was their flagship, the Pac-10 at that time was probably the best conference in terms of all sports. Remember, like I said, Conference of Champions. And so back then, USC's player scandals, well, they put a little bit of a damper over the cloud, or better yet, over the head of the Pac-10. Well, what's interesting is they were talking about, well, Reggie Bush, this, that, and the other. Well, guess what? Reggie Bush ended up getting his trophy back. He ended up getting his Heisman Trophy back, and now Reggie is in a position to say to USC and the NCAA, show me the money! And to the NFL as well, because Reggie Bush was wronged in the grand scheme of things. I think Reggie could probably win $100 million if he plays his cards right. But Reggie was one hell of a player, and there was a lot of rigmarole made about a whole bunch of garbage that wasn't necessarily true, because obviously they gave him his trophy back and they gave him his standing back. And so all they got to do is the same thing for Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll obviously has moved on, and Pete Carroll is, of course, with the Raiders at this point, which I think is the wrong system for him to bring his system into a team that doesn't know how to stop the run in the first place. Boy, the Raiders are a mess, and they've been a mess for a very long time right here in Las Vegas. But I have to say that the Pac-10 was a colossal mess when it was run under Larry Scott. So just remember that. When you think of the high-profile players, the high-profile everything that came out of there, the Pac-12 was flushed down the toilet, and now the Pac-2.5 or Pac-7.5, call it what you will. Back here in just a few, lots more to come. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello, Americans, it's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time, that's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, in the last segment, we gave a trivia question for a chance to pick up a couple of nights here in Las Vegas or in Branson, Missouri, or in Orlando, Florida. If you could guess the trivia question, you could pick up a couple of nights in any one of those places. And the trivia question, I'm going to repeat it in case you missed it, in case you just turned in right now. Which NBA player is on the Nike logo, who is the jump man on basketball jerseys, football jerseys, etc. and so forth? Is it A, Kobe Bryant, B, Allen Iverson, C, Michael Jordan, or D, Seth Curry? Answer the question right now for your chance to pick up a couple of free nights in either Branson, Las Vegas, or Orlando. That's 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777, brought to you by Vacation Buddies, who is not affiliated, by the way, with this radio station. So check them out, 888-576-577, and answer that trivia question for your nights on a trip that you'll never forget. Yes! All right, back to this dubious list of these horrific commissioners, according to the Bleacher Report, not me, but I may agree, I may not agree with some of these. Now, whether it's dated or not doesn't even matter because this content is legit. How about number 8, Mike Helton of NASCAR? Yeah, you heard it, NASCAR. How about that one? We think back to the old Ricky Bobby stuff, right? Maybe NASCAR has done an incredible job in terms of marketing, promotion, to be a good way for the fans to draw more people. And the fans, listen, they bring their friends. And one time I went to Daytona, and I have to tell you, going to Daytona, it was something I felt like, well, you know, auto racing, not really a sport. I mean, if you can do what? If you could do it and drink a beer at the same time, then it's not a sport, is what I always say. Anyway, whatever the case. Well, listen, I got in one of those cars. I talked my way into one of those NASCAR cars at the Daytona International Speedway. And the guy goes, well, you know, we're going to go about 170 miles an hour. And I'm thinking, okay, well, we're the only people on this track. I mean, it can't be that dangerous. Of course, he's wearing his full fire retardant suit and whatnot. And here's me wearing flip-flops, shorts, a T-shirt, and basically nothing else. It was hilarious. Well, I had shorts on too, of course. I mentioned that. But anyway, this guy's in full protective gear, and here I am with my giant cranium. They put a helmet on me, of course. And the guy goes, you know, you're really going to feel it as we go around the corners. And as we go around the corners of these, as we go around the corners of these turns. Now, mind you, this was a whole new thing to me. So I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. It's easy to say, well, you know, this is something we're going to try, but when you've never done it before, you ask yourself, all right, what am I getting in for? So here's me. My goal was to just talk my way in the first place. I just wanted to see if I could actually do it. And so for me, I was able to actually talk my way into it, which is great. And in most cases, folks, it's hard for people to do that. But I will tell you that when you get into one of these cars, I mean, it is really, really compact. Now, if you think by chance that you're going to be getting into something where you got a little bit of room and this, that, and the other, trust me, you don't have the room that you may think. I mean, it is really, really tight. So in the grand scheme of things, you ask yourself, well, am I getting myself into something that I can't get out of? And that's the first question you ask yourself. But technically, no, that's not an issue. But as you look at it, you say, well, all right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump into this thing and I'm going to give it a shot just like everybody else and anybody else would. And some people are really scared of it and they're scared of speed. And for me personally, I'm not scared of speed, but I just say, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump into the saddle. And so I jumped into the saddle and I'm trying to find a video and I can't find it here, folks. But my point in all of this, where you could actually hear what I'm saying, but I guess with all of this, you ask yourself, are you really ready to get into a NASCAR? Well, don't kid yourself, because it is a lot scarier than you could possibly imagine. Now, if you don't believe it, because those cars, man, they move. And did I mention they move? They move. And so I get into this thing, and I'm literally going 170, just like the guy said, and it turns out that the odometer is climbing and climbing. As a matter of fact, I got it right here, folks. I got it right here.
Jim Clash.
Listen to this.
Write for Forbes magazine, the adventure column.
All right. Well, this is an adventure, is it not?
Yeah, I come down here. I love doing this. I've been doing it for a long time. It's one of the things I cover, racing.
All right. Here I am, folks.
In case you think, all right, here we go.
I'm in this car, and here's our crew. There he is. Say hello, everybody. What's your name?
Albert.
Albert?
I'm Greg.
Greg and
Jeremy.
there's Jeremy. All right. Sir. We're going to be going how fast?
About 170.
About 170, he says. All right. All right, let's kick this thing in the ass and let's go.
You're going to really feel it in the corner.
Okay. All right, here we go, folks.
Yes! Live from the Sports Circus! We're NASCAR! We're at Daytona! And here we go!
Man, this thing is moving right now. And we're only in third gear. We're already doing 125, 130 miles an hour. You can hear that high-revving engine. Now he's in fourth gear. And listen to this thing go. Now we're up to about 170 on the back stretch. And just when you think it's not a sport, let me tell you something, folks. I'm telling you this for a reason. This is one scary-ass ride. Now we're up over 180 miles an hour. Mind you, he said we were only going to go 170 miles an hour. Now I'm looking at the speedometer. Now we're up over 190 miles an hour. You can't even hear my commentary. I did a live video from here, but you couldn't even hear it. And now as I look at the video, we're up to right around 200 miles an hour. So you kind of get the point. All right, so I'll stop the video from here. But it is one hell of a ride, folks. If you've never done this. Now, we had a nice invitation for Mario Andretti on this show. And Mario was nice enough to give us the opportunity to go into the car and whatnot. And Mario's just a great guy. Great guy. And it was so nice to see him. And he was just so gracious with his time. But I will tell you that was no joke, getting in that vehicle. And so I think about NASCAR. Okay, is it a sport? Back to my original. I'm just rambling at this point. So is it really a sport? You're damn right it is. You think of the whole Ricky Bobby thing? Yeah. And is it scary? Yeah. Imagine being out there with 40 odd other cars in bumper-to-bumper traffic doing 200 miles an hour. That's crazy. But you say, well, how in the world, because you're saying, well, worst commissioners, back to the old Mike Helton thing, how did he mess things up? I mean, look, the league doesn't necessarily try to please everybody, and I guess that's what really matters. And so there's a particular audience when this guy was around that they were really after. So obviously the Speed Channel even helped with expansion and stuff like that. But this guy also nurtured the chase for the Cup, which provided an extra boost, of course, for late season racing. Critical for considering it appearing the height of the NFL and college season. The problem is the timing for this was really off. So the beginning of the NASCAR season, actually Daytona, which is basically their Super Bowl, in a strange way, is right after, yes, the Super Bowl. I mean, imagine that. I mean, talk about terrible timing, terrible planning. But NASCAR is legit, folks. I've been against it because I didn't know enough about it. But I have to say that, man, it was something. It really was something. What a great experience. You ever get down to Daytona, make sure you get a chance to go. You could actually drive the cars. You could drive those NASCAR cars. And me, I just got a ride because I wanted the guy to open it up. And I don't know what the speed restrictions are if you drive them. You got to go through a couple of hours of training or stuff like that, whatever. I mean, it's really just a 4-speed. If you could drive a stick, whatever, it's just a regular 4-speed situation. But, man, those things are lightning fast. And if you're not ready for it, man, you got to watch out. But there's the Racing Hall of Fame is in there and whatnot. We saw John Force's speed cars, funny cars and whatnot in there. We had John Force, who is the godfather of drag racing, John Force on the show. We had Ricky Stenhouse on the show. We've had some racing legends on the show. But, boy, what a treat. Mario Andretti, probably the biggest name we've ever had on this show. And that includes big political people as well. What a great experience. Too bad they had a very questionable commissioner in Mike Helton. Nonetheless, back with our dubious list in just a few moments. In just a few minutes.
Do you know someone with a drug or alcohol problem? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP television. Again, folks, check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, recorded shows, which can be found on Apple, Amazon, Audible, Pandora, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Deezer, and all other streaming platforms where applicable. Also, a big welcome to everybody on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Make sure you check out Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. And a big welcome back to everybody listening in on all of our affiliates, both television and everybody watching there, of course, and everybody on radio too. So everybody, you can watch your radio, but chances are you're not going to be able to see me because, well, that's how it works. But anyway, all right, back to this list from Bleacher Report. I'm going to blow through these real quick. And there's a couple I really want to focus on. And look, you can argue that former SEC Commissioner Michael Slive was not so good. He wasn't that bad. I'm not going to say much about him. David Stern in, I don't know, turning a blind eye to what was happening with Michael Jordan and this and that. I don't know. And if you don't know, you better start doing a little bit of homework. I mean, Mike never cheated in basketball, never did anything like that. There were some other issues that happened maybe for that alleged 2-year retirement. I don't know. I guess you'd have to do some research, and it's just what a little bird whispered in my ear. But David Stern wasn't the worst. He wasn't the best, but he was fairly solid. And what we know is that a 7-game series certainly shouldn't take more than 2 weeks, but unfortunately we've seen some of that when he first brought it in for certain series under his watch. Moving on, and of course, it was the big question mark with Jim Delaney when he was with the Big Ten Conference. And this guy wasn't really the best kind of guy. I mean, he did what he had to do. He wasn't terrible, but I'm not going to go beat him up because he did a solid job, but there were some questions in the same light with Dana White with the UFC. I have a bigger problem with Roger Goodell because I think Roger Goodell is a puppet. And I don't really believe that Roger Goodell has done a whole hell of a lot of good for the NFL. In fact, I think he is paid to stay out of the way. And you've heard me say that a number of times on this show. And I just think he is a figurehead and he stays there. And okay, I'm going to go ahead and fill this slot in the same way we probably saw at a prior administration. But nonetheless, I'm going to focus a little bit more time here on good old, and let's start this with a round of boos. Good old Rob Manfred. Rob Manfred, in my opinion, has to be worse than Roger Goodell only because of the meddling in the game. Roger Goodell basically is invisible, but I think Rob Manfred has been the meddling commissioner. And this guy has been flip-flop. He literally, according to Sports Illustrated even, they say Rob Manfred's Pete Rose flip-flop further stains his legacy. So further stained. So they're implying that it already was stained anyway. And they say that Manfred has spent his decade as Major League Baseball commissioner publicly talking about the integrity of baseball and privately taking swipes at it. How do you like them apples? They say MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred's pace of play rules have been a nearly unqualified success. The World Baseball Classic has become must-see theater under his watch, and he's making real progress towards eliminating television blackouts. But when it comes down to it, he has one job. Nothing else matters if fans don't believe what they're seeing on the field is real. And with a recent decision to reinstate Pete Rose, which, of course, my opinion is very, very clear on that. He is ensured, according to SI, that his legacy as commissioner will be one of failure. And of course, that was, in my opinion, a terrible, terrible decision because Pete knew what he was doing. He absolutely knew what he was doing. He was violating every time he gambled. And remember, every time you look in the clubhouse, when you walk in the clubhouse, says what? No gambling in baseball. What does he do? He gambles in baseball over and over and over and over. And then he lies about it. And then he finally admits it years later. And by the way, then Pete ends up going to jail for tax evasion or to prison, I believe. And at the end of the day, how do you bring somebody back into the game like that? People say, well, this guy, that guy, they were on the ineligible list and whatnot. Well, guess what? Guys like Shoeless Joe Jackson, he was illiterate and he was exonerated and he was not found guilty of any wrongdoing. And he just, remember, in case you don't know, Joe Jackson was illiterate and he started working at the age of 6 years of age. Yeah, at 6 of age, he was working at the mill in South Carolina. He was working full-time, 6, 7 years of age, and the education was a luxury back then. And so Joe Jackson was illiterate, and they had no money, and he started first playing baseball. He was a pitcher, in case you didn't know, and he was a pitcher until at 13 years of age, first one at 13 years of age. And he broke somebody's arm. He threw the ball so hard, so he said, you know what, I don't want to hurt anybody, so I'm going to go ahead and go in the outfield. Just a good guy. So people say, well, Joe Jackson was a bad guy with the cheating World Series. No, he wasn't. No. But moving on, you think about that whole Rob Manfred thing and the decision to make Rose eligible for the Hall of Fame. And look, it changed its rules after the ban to bar anyone on the permanently ineligible list from enshrinement. And Manfred, predictably, of course, insisted in a letter to Rose's attorney that, quote, it is not part of my authority or responsibility to express any view concerning Mr. Rose considering by or possible election to the Hall of Fame, close quote, passing that burden instead to the voters. So he's like, look, I'm going to go ahead and make a ruling, but I'm going to stain Major League Baseball. And so SI also said Manfred had spent his decade as commissioner publicly talking about the integrity of the game and privately taking swipes at it, and he failed to root out the pervasive use of technology to steal signs illegally during the mid-2010s, only taking action after Mike Fierce told The Athletic on the record in 2019 that the Houston Astros had used an illegal camera feed and banged on trash can to alert hitters which pitches were coming during their 2017 championship season. Nearly everyone in the game had heard some version of the story by then, including the commissioner's office, to whom the Oakland A's, Fierce's new team, had made similar allegation. Yet Manfred let it continue. How do you like that? And also, he reacted the same way to grumblings about the game that pitchers were using more outrageous foreign substances, and that's like stuff like spider tack, to increase the spin rate and the grip and whatnot. Now, folks, if you've never played baseball before, I'm a former pitcher. When you get a new baseball from the umpire, the new baseballs are very slippery. And there's somebody rubbing the balls down before the game they're supposed to be anyway, all right? So some of the shine and some of the finish is off of those. But I got to tell you, when you get a new baseball in your hands, especially on a cold day, man, it is hard to hold that ball. So some pitchers would somehow try to wet their hands, maybe squirt some spit between their teeth or something onto the ball so they could grip the ball better. And when they grip the ball better, they could spin it tighter, which would make the ball move a little bit more, in case you don't know. But there's this stuff called spider tack that was being used out there, which is almost like Stickum back in the day with guys like Fred Biletnikoff, who would put it out in his hands to catch the football back with the Oakland Raiders back in the day. And so you'd ask yourself, what does spider tack do? Well, it allows you to grip the ball in a way where you can actually really spin the ball tighter, which would increase your slider or increase your curveball or any of your off-speed pitches. And honestly, the ball just moves a hell of a lot more. So your RPMs move up. And of course, when your RPMs move up, well, the ball actually can do a hell of a lot more, dances a lot more. Not like a knuckleball, but it still dances. But nonetheless, that whole spider tack thing, it became a real problem. And players and fans really no longer trust even the composition of the sport's most fundamental piece of equipment after studies found discrepancies in the makeup of baseballs by Rawlings, which Major League Baseball currently owns. That's right. And all this happened where? Under Rob Manfred's watch. And of course, guys were complaining and people were saying, well, hey, Major League Baseball owns that. And of course, even Pete Alonso, he openly stated that the league might switch out baseballs depending on the makeup of the future free agent market classes to suppress salaries on top of it. What? And you know what? I happen to believe that. So much of the discourse around baseball under Manfred's tenure has been about whether the sport is rigged or not. And I got to tell you, I'm one to believe that there are things that are compromised. So SI says, continued, but at least the Astros and the sticky-fingered pitchers were cheating the game in order to win games. Rose, who after decades of lying about it, admitted in 2004 in a memoir to having bet on baseball and has always said he only bet on the Reds to win. Now that may be true, but what about the games when they didn't win? Do you think that Rose maybe had a hand in that? Do you think that maybe he split the winnings with the other parties that were bet? We don't know that stuff. We just don't know. And so Rose had a direct effect on the game and the management of the game. This is all Rob Manfred's undoing. I mean, look, it's this competing incentive structure that makes Rule 21, don't bet on baseball, the holiest of all baseball rules, period. And if fans can't be sure everyone is involved trying to win, the whole enterprise falls apart. And this is the main issue with that and this Rob Manfred issue. Never mind increasing the base sizes. Never mind instituting a pitch clock, which is complete and utter lunacy. And by the way, folks, with those baseballs, those conveniently far-traveling baseballs, AAA uses the same balls. However, A ball and AA do not use those baseballs, in case you didn't know. And so then, of course, if anyone should know, this is, of course, is Manfred, who in the past 14 months alone has presided over 3 public gaming scandals. And of course, one of those, of course, we had the interpreter for Show Me the Money, Shohei Ohtani. And you know what's interesting? They admitted, of course, apparently that guy admitted that stole millions of dollars from Ohtani to fund his illegal gambling habit. But here's one thing that we may not know, or somebody had once told me, that Ohtani and his interpreter met on a gambling bender right here in Las Vegas. And some people allege that it was really Ohtani gambling, but Manfred could not handle a scandal of the poster boy of Major League Baseball and diversity in trouble. And so some people are saying, hey, this could be this. Well, they're saying the interpreter was placing the bets for Ohtani. Now, I don't know that. Who the hell knows that? But I'll tell you what, there is some interesting information that's sitting out there. Only you can decide what you feel about it. From firing umpires to cheating this, that, and the other of the game, to doubleheaders being played with less innings, to a man on second base to start extra innings. The whole thing has been a disaster under Rob Manfred. He is the worst of the worst, in my opinion, and even SI plus all the other organizations out there. Look, this guy is the grand champion of losers, in my opinion, as commissioners. That's going to do it for the circus today. I'm your Ringmaster Sal. I'm fired up, and I'm out of here. So long, everyone.
If I was your mother and you had a drug problem, I'd grab you by the ear and make you call and get help. You can be in treatment tomorrow and start to get clean in 7 days. Follow Mom's advice and call the Detox and Treatment Helpline now. Write this number down.
800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. That's 800-814-8628.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.